When we confront the most dangerous figures in society, from predatory corporate leaders to violent offenders, we tend to fall back on a classic true crime debate. Were they born this way, or were they made? In the 19th century, the answer seemed purely biological. Cesare Lombroso, a pioneer of criminology, argued that criminals were evolutionary throwbacks, individuals born with a primitive nature that made them incapable of following modern laws. Lombroso believed you could spot these born criminals by their physical defects. He cataloged features like asymmetrical faces, prominent jaws, and unusually large ears as the visible proof of a biological destiny. By the mid-20th century, the pendulum swung to the other extreme. Psychoanalysts began blaming antisocial behavior almost entirely on environment, arguing that cold parenting and childhood trauma were the sole creators of a psychopathic personality. Today, researchers look past this either-or choice. Instead of choosing between nature and nurture, modern science is focused on the specific mechanism of their intersection, how biological predispositions and life experiences interact to shape human behavior. Research points to a biological starting point, primary psychopathy. This cold core temperament features low fear, lacking guilt and empathy. A landmark study by S.E. Vidding found these callous-unemotional traits are 2/3 heritable, appearing in children as young as 3. But the existence of these genes is not a behavioral blueprint. Having a cold core or a warrior gene means a child is emotionally detached. It doesn't automatically mean they will grow up to be violent. Genetics provide the structure of the house, but they don't decide who lives inside it or what happens within those walls. That's where the multiplier comes in, secondary psychopathy. This version of the disorder isn't just about temperament. It's driven by external forces like chaos, abuse, and parental neglect. When a child experiences severe physical abuse or betrayal trauma, their brain receives a potent signal that the world is inherently dangerous and self-serving. To survive, the child often adopts emotional numbing as a defense mechanism. They learn to dissociate from their feelings to cope with the pain, which over time hardens into a lack of empathy for others. Clinical studies show that these specific adverse childhood experiences are the most consistent predictors of adult psychopathic traits. Trauma acts as a tutorial, teaching a developing brain to weaponize its existing emotional detachment. In this model, the environment is the catalyst. It takes a vulnerable biological base and activates the aggressive coping mechanisms that define a criminal profile. Scientific consensus suggests psychopathy is the result of a chemical reaction. The genes provide the volatile ingredients, but the environment decides the final reaction. Consider 2 children born with the exact same genetic cold core. If the first child is raised in a stable, advantaged, and supportive environment, their traits follow a very specific trajectory. Without trauma to trigger reactive aggression, their emotional detachment is channeled into controlled behavior. They might become the charming, non-criminal operator, successful but still emotionally distant inside. But if the second child with that same genetic core is subjected to a chaotic or abusive home, the outcome shifts. That environment channels their lack of empathy into reactive and impulsive violence. It's the same biological base, but a completely different behavioral expression. This realization is why early intervention is so critical. Because the environment dictates how these traits manifest, targeted therapy and supportive parenting can actually redirect a child's developmental path. Psychopathy is a complex interaction, not a predetermined fate. A biological predisposition is never a guaranteed life sentence, because as the research at Harvard Medical School reminds us, DNA is not destiny.